Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Finnerty, and I am so excited that you're here to join us. We are here this evening joining the Arizona Lottery as well as Central Arizona Shelter Services to raise awareness and funds for our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. I'm the founder and director of the Storytellers Project, but I'm also a downtown Phoenix resident. And so it's with a full heart that we join you this evening to share true stories of resiliency and provide resources and ideas about how you watching can help support our neighbors right now when they need it the most. This is a really special show because the lottery is working to connect you and I with people in our community who are the most vulnerable, generally speaking, but also right now, especially because of the pandemic. We're going to tell you a little bit more about that in the show and what you can do to make life better for them. But the big idea behind this show right now is in times of uncertainty, our values inspire us to help each other. And our stories are one of the most powerful ways we can share our values. Tonight, we explicitly celebrate the values of generosity and community support. With that, I want to bring up our storytellers so that you can say hi to them. We're really thankful for their time tonight. Daniel Iverson is a veteran and a staff member at Project Haven, where he's a CASS Rapid Rehousing Coordinator. Thanks for joining us. MiAsia Pasha is a longtime CASS board member, and she's a former client. Thanks for being with us. Cleo Lewis is a veteran and assistant pastor at North Mountain Christian Assembly, way up in Sunny Slope, and he's a CASS volunteer pastor. He's also a volunteer at the Chaplaincy of the Homeless. So Cleo is busy, literally doing the Lord's work. And later, thank you, Cleo. And later in tonight's show, we'll hear from Cheryl Furr. She works a full-time job with the federal government, but she's going to tell her personal story about how the pandemic made her needs help at Project Haven. So it's really a powerful story. We're thankful for Cheryl's time later in the show. We want to get the show kicked off right now. If you want, you can donate right off. You can donate by visiting the CASS website. It's kind of got a long web link, but it's CASS, CASSAZ.org/help. In the chat, we're going to put a specific link for tonight's show, but if you're just curious, you can go to CASSAZ/help, and there's a lot there. So as I said, you guys might know CASS, Central Arizona Shelter Services, and the big idea is, oh, I'm sorry, can you guys hear me? Somebody asked. I'm just making sure. Okay, everyone can hear me. Sorry about that, you guys. The COVID-19 pandemic has meant that there are extraordinary unplanned expenses and challenges for this 35-year-old shelter in the middle of our state. Particularly, CASS has worked fast and really powerfully to create supportive emergency housing options for the elderly and those with chronic health conditions. We're going to tell you a little bit more about this later in the show, but I want you to know right this second, just $10 can connect 50 people to masks in the shelter, and $22 covers the cost for one bed night for someone experiencing homelessness. So we're going to tell you more about that later, but we really hope to, like get you to open your heart, maybe your wallet. I know that was cheesy, but I'm serious about it. So here's the deal. Tonight is not a TED Talk. It's not Toastmasters. Truly, these are our neighbors, and they will be sharing true first-person stories about their hearts, hoping to connect with your heart. We are not going to sell you anything. We're just going to ask for a little bit of support. Storytelling is based on visiting. You open your heart and your mind to get closer to somebody who you're curious about, because we know that that's how community connection really happens. We truly invite you to do that here tonight, or whenever you're watching, if you're watching a little bit later this week. Some of these stories are going to be polished and professional. Some are going to be casual and conversational. We invite you to receive all of them in the spirit in which they're intended. Creating empathy is vital in times of uncertainty. And I am specifically excited to welcome up our first teller, because he's going to help us do that. Daniel, are you ready to take it away?
I'm ready.
Okay, thanks. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Dan Iverson. My story began about 42 years ago, come next week, when I celebrate my 42nd birthday. I was a very young child. My father passed away when I was about 2 years old, and my mom was left to basically assume roles as a mother, a father, a sibling, and what have you. And while she did her best with what she had, it got difficult at times. And because of that, she turned to other means of coping, per se. And while she did that, it kind of turned into be a bad thing, where I was a recipient of abuse and homelessness myself. So for many years, we struggled to find a home, a place to sleep for the night. We had to shower at park, bathrooms and things like that. It was a bit tough for me, because I was a kid, didn't have friends to come over and play with, or I didn't go to other people's houses just because whatever reason. And then we fast forward a few years. In 1990, I moved to Arizona, and I ended up coming to high school here in Central in Phoenix, and I met some influential people. And at the time, I didn't have much direction in my life. I was, per se, I was a thug. Wasn't a drug dealer or a gangbanger or anything like that, but I was just, I had no direction, and I knew that I needed to do something. So I ended up joining the military. So in 1997, I joined the United States Marine Corps. I did 4 years of infantry, and my whole goal was just to do 4 years and then go on about my business. On September 11th of 2001, my career was supposed to end. That was my 4 years of active service. And as we all know, as the towers are coming down, I was coming back from a 6-month deployment, and I was what they call stop loss, which means that there's no movement in or out of the military. So I ended up finding my way in a small little country called Afghanistan, which some of you guys may have heard of. I spent 16 weeks there. I came back to the States, still had no direction, and ended up going back in 2003 for the invasion into Iraq, and I was there for the Battle of Fallujah as well in 2004. I did many tours. In that time, I felt I was invincible. Nothing could penetrate. I was one mind track, and didn't really have any much regard to other people. And then I met somebody. I married my ex-wife, unfortunately, and I ended up having 2 kids. But during that time, like I said, I still felt that the military was more important than being a family man, and being there for my children. So in 2014, I ended up being divorced, and I started a new career at a place called Yelp. And life was great. I met a very special person who helped redefine kind of who I wanted to be. They basically made me become a better version of myself, and challenged me to become that person I've always wanted to be. Then, as we all know, in March, April time, this pandemic took effect, COVID-19, where I lost my job. And I was I was scared. Didn't know what was going to happen. Didn't know what was going to happen next. I had 2 beautiful kids that I had to be strong for. And I had to make sure that I'm doing the best thing that I could for my kids. So I had to help. I struggled a lot with trying to, be that bigger person and ask for help. But I did ask for help. I did get some guidance here and there. And then, throughout, I was looking for some work, and I saw a sign at CASS that said they're hiring. Knowing that I had no background experience, no credibility in the field per se, I decided to take a chance, and I interviewed in early June. And I went in, I spoke I eloquently. I did what I had to do, and I ended up getting a job. I started at CASS at Project Haven in June 19th of this year, where I've been very successful. I've had a great team of individuals that helped me. My supervisor has been instrumental in my growth and in my just my day-to-day production. Project Haven has been one of those things where it's like I kind of see myself in some of my clients. I can relate to my clients. I know what it's like to be homeless, to be scared, to not have the means to make the decision or the right thing to do at the time. And sometimes in life, you just need that little budge, and just to kind of a little swift kick in the butt per se, and kind of get you in the right direction. So here I am now. I've got a home. I've got my kids. I've got my health. I've got great friends and family that support me, and I couldn't ask for anything better. But I've always been the type of person where I wanted to go against grain and fight back with things that I can't. But being where I'm at now and my experiences, I've learned that I just got to take what I get and then make the best of it, and go on with my life and be a better person. Thank you for listening to my story.
Daniel, thank you so much for telling us your story, and thank you for your service, your resiliency, your model of fortitude in the face of incredible hardship. We so appreciate this.
Thank you.
And I want to say Daniel's still there, but he's home with his kiddos tonight. So we're having him go first this evening, but he will stay with us through the end of the show, but he might be back and forth because we're keeping it real here at our live shows. And we know that you've got your family and your life at home with you, and our storytellers do too. And that's why we thank them so much, because they volunteer to work with us. They get coaching, but they also volunteer their time to share their hearts with yours. So when we thank them, we really do mean it, because we know it's not easy in the best of times, and it's particularly more complicated right now. That brings me to the Arizona Lottery. We want to thank them for their support of this show, because they have truly stepped up during the pandemic. They said they're proud to be part of the effort to help fund a dedicated shelter for seniors suffering homelessness, which we know is a population especially vulnerable during the COVID-19 pandemic. But this is just how the lottery rolls all the time. They fund efforts to combat homelessness, and they support more than a dozen vital programs across the state, serving Arizona's most vulnerable populations. It's truly their mandate, it's their mission, and it's who they are as people. Since 1981, the lottery and its retail partners have generated more than $4.4 billion in net funding, in support of programs that improve the quality of life for the people of Arizona. The proceeds from lottery ticket sales, they fund programs in education, economic development, environmental conservation, and wildlife, and of course, health and human services. So when we thank them, we super mean it here. I'm going to go right now. We have a tiny PSA from the lottery, and we're going to show it to you right now, or from CASS.
A single Arizona lottery ticket can do a whole lot of good. It helps create jobs, provides vital care to those who need it most, and invests in our higher education infrastructure. It preserves Arizona's dazzling untamed wildlife, gives those in need a warm bed, and supports children in foster care. Because of you, each ticket for 39 years has added up to more than $4 billion of good for this beautiful state we call home.
Thanks again to the lottery for their support of this show. And as you saw there, so much more. Our next storyteller is MiAsia, and we are so pleased she could join us here tonight. She has a beautiful story about how she came into contact with CASS, but also how she's come to serve that organization over the years. Take it away.
My name is MiAsia Pasha, and I am the queen of fashion. But I'm also the mother of 2 children, 2 wonderful daughters, and I'm also a survivor of HIV and AIDS. But I'm also on the board of CASS. I came to CASS in 1991. I came to Arizona. I had my own business for over 30 years, and I was living my life, had my own business going in Los Angeles. And God came to me one day and said that my children's father was dying of AIDS, and that I had to come to Phoenix. And I hated Phoenix. I did not want to come here. I tried everything I could do not to come here. But I came to Phoenix in May of 1991 because they said my husband was dying. I stayed here. I talked to my daughters. Nobody believed me that he was dying. He was in denial. So I didn't know what to do. I mean, I had to stay here because my daughter was still in high school. My youngest daughter was in high school. I knew I had to stay here, but I didn't want to stay here. I wanted to go back to my life, and I couldn't go back to my life. So I wound up having a nervous breakdown. I went to the streets. I started using drugs and just not wanting to live anymore. And I didn't know about homeless shelters at all. And I got beat up by some drug dealers. And they took me, the police came to the hospital and picked me up, and they took me to the homeless shelter. I didn't even know the homeless shelter existed at that time. And so I wound up at CASS. I didn't know anything about CASS. I didn't know anything about homelessness. I had never been homeless before. And so I just wanted to lay there for a couple of days, get my little act together, and go back out to the streets. That didn't work. The ladies in the shelter started coming to me and asking me questions about the things that were going on at CASS. Because at CASS, they call us their guests. And guess what? There were some things that were happening that MiAsia was not happy with. And some of the other women weren't happy with too. So what I did was I started a women's advisory board. And I got all the ladies together, all the guests together, and we wrote down our grievances. And one morning at 7:30 in the morning, I took them to the board. And I walked in with 27 women who got up, got dressed, and went with me to back me up. I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I didn't know anything about going to the board for grievances, but I knew that some changes need to be made at CASS. And so we got to the board, and I told them, I'm MiAsia. I'm the spokesperson. These are our grievances. And the board welcomed me. I was surprised, but they welcomed me, and the other ladies left. And so we got some things changed. We got the staff directory rewritten. And the president of the board at that time was Brian Morphy. He said, MiAsia, why don't you apply for the board of directors? I didn't want to be on the board. I didn't want to apply for anything. All I wanted to do was get out of the shelter and go on with my life. But I did apply for the board, and they welcomed me with open arms. And I've sat on the board of directors at CASS for the last 30 years. I'm the spokesperson for the homeless because I know what it's like to be homeless. I had never been homeless before. I ran my own business. I didn't know anything about drug addicts or alcoholics. And everybody at the shelter is not a drug addict or alcoholic. So I sit on the board as a spokesperson, as the person who knows what the board, what our guests need, because I've been homeless. I've got my business back. I've got my children back in my life. I've got surrounded by family and friends. My business is running good. I'm the designer of a new line of clothing called Snap Wraps. You can see me on my Facebook page, MiAsia Pasha. And I am happy now, but I'm also very concerned about the things that are happening at the shelter. We need your funding. We need your dollars in your pockets. Take them out now and donate to CASS. CASS is a stepping stone. I call it a stepping stone to the rest of the lives of the people who live there. We can't keep the doors open without help from the community. And I know that people look at on the streets at people that are homeless, and they just walk past them, and they're human beings. We're human beings. We just had a hard little life. We ran into an obstacle, but CASS gave me back my dignity. CASS gave me back my self-esteem. CASS gave me a desire to help because I've been on the board for 30 years. I didn't know anything about the board, but now I've been sitting there for 30 years and helping get the word out and helping. I'm a motivator. I'm a mentor for the ladies at the homeless shelter. I give donations out once a week, and I mentor them and let them know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. CASS is not just a warehouse for housing homeless. It is a place that helps us get our lives back in order. And thank you so very much for all you do for all you're doing for CASS. CASSAZ.org/donations or help. Don't believe that everybody there wants to be homeless. We don't want to be homeless. We want to have our own places. We want to be citizens of the society. And thank you so very much for listening.
MiAsia, thank you so much for your story. And thank you for the hard sell. No, I do. I'm joking, but we do appreciate it because people do need to know that there are solutions. There are great organizations. You've been there almost the entire length of CASS. That organization's only 35 years old. You've been there 30 years, so you know what you're talking about.
I know what's going on.
You do. We appreciate your time, but also we appreciate your volunteerism.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, building on her story, I want to take a second to let you guys know I was serious. It's been around for 35 years and they have been open every single night since then. They have helped to provide shelter for more than 150,000 of our neighbors. And they break it down to bed nights. So that's like times all those nights of the year, 5.5 million. So these are really incredible numbers, which I hope are giving you a sense of the scope and the need. They also provide services for people who are at risk of becoming homelessness, people who might not ever set foot into the shelter, including eviction prevention, financial assistance, all kinds of wraparound services. So we are asking you again with this show to like think of your neighbors, think of these stories. One of the big ideas that CASS has communicated consistently, and certainly something that I know I've heard in these stories and so many others, is that homelessness can happen to any of us almost at any time for almost any reason. Even the best laid plans can become tenuous. And what the coronavirus has really helped us understand is how tenuous our situations are for some of our neighbors and ourselves. So we appreciate your time. We certainly appreciate our storytellers sharing their stories, but we just wanted you to know a little bit more about the organization we're raising money for tonight. With that, it is a blessing to bring up our next storyteller. Cleo Lewis is here to talk to us about his journey from sort of like being like super dad at one point of your life, stepping away from that, and now returning. So take it away, Cleo.
Thank you. Some 20 years ago, just a little over 20 years ago, back in 1989, I would have never thought that I could have been homeless or, even dealing with the crisis that would cause one to be homeless. I was working as a Phoenix Police Department gang investigator. I was assigned to organized crime unit. I was married. I had 4 children at that time. I was a very incredibly successful dad, a husband. I was on the way to finishing up just a little bit over 10 years. And I was going to retire. That was my game plan. And then to go find something to do next. I was very good at my job and I liked it a lot. And then I went to work and I didn't handle a drug case I was assigned to investigate right. I became addicted to drugs. My life fell apart. And later I was charged with crimes. I lost my job. I was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And after serving 3, I was paroled and was returning back to Arizona. My wife divorced me when I was in prison, so I couldn't go back to what my normal was before all of this fell apart. So I ended up being homeless. And I immediately tried to grab a hold of some things and get things back together. But things kind of weren't working. I had remarried, I'd had more children, and I didn't know what to do, and everything fell apart in my life, and I just kind of gave up. I can't explain what being homeless is because there's different things to different people, but you kind of go from a shelter mode to a survival mode. You don't trust anybody that people are telling you. I got where I couldn't sleep during the time because I didn't have a safe place to be. So you kind of sleep during the day and you don't get enough sleep. And after a while, you just start looking at yourself, sinking lower and lower. You just don't want to be like that no more. I started going to this church and they started making some recommendations. The pastor there had started to mentor me, and I went down to the VA, and then the VA suggested that I would go to CASS. I wanted to get help. I just didn't know how to help myself. And I had failed so many times at trying to do it on my own. So I finally started talking to the case manager, and the case manager done something that I never expected her to do. She addressed me by my name. She started always referring to me by Mr. Lewis. that sounds like a very small thing, but when I was in prison, no one talked to you that way. When I was on the streets, no one talked to you that way. She started making recommendations, and she asked me if I agreed with the method that she had wanted me to consider on me helping myself. CASS for me was a hand up rather than a hand out. And that's significant because I started to feel a little bit better about myself. And she saw me like the way I wanted people to see me, not kind of as the way I was. I showed up at CASS with high blood pressure, serious high blood pressure, medical issues that complicated that. I had dental health issues. I had emotional health issues. I was a mess. And in her process, she found out that I didn't have a driver's license and I had ticket issues, fines in Tucson. She suggested that I enroll into a veterans court program. So imagine this. My case manager was so innovative. She helped me find a way to go down to Tucson to attend court, to do the community service I needed to do down there, and return back to the shelter. And anyone who loses their license know that if you don't have an address, it's hard to get a license. And it's hard to get a license if you don't have an address. You can't get a car. And there's a myriad of things that go with that. Another thing that happened very significantly to me, a board member was walking through the shelter, and she was really big on helping the occupants. She was advocating for them. And she always carried a big key ring, all these keys. And she mentioned something to me. She said, I want you to have keys like this. And she meant it. She said, I want you to have places to go, things you're responsible for. And that kind of really struck me. I used to be a man with a lot of keys, and now I had none. Or like, I might just have had one, but I wanted to be a man with a lot of keys. While I was at CASS, I stayed in touch with the pastor that was mentoring me. And I enjoyed the kind of work that he was doing in the community. And I remembered talking to a lot of the chaplains there. I really enjoyed the work that they were having, the way they were communicating with people outside of CASS, in the perimeter of CASS, and even while visiting inside in our living areas. Once I left CASS, I went back to that small church, and I remember that pastor saying, I would be great for outreach. And then he suggested I go to ministry school. That was a lot of work. That was 6 years of schooling, a lot of nights. And in between that, I was actually doing outreach, going out to meet with people, to talk with people, to encourage people. And that's significant. That's what I saw that was so significant with people that are homeless and that is dealing with this type of a crisis. They need someone to encourage them right where they're at. I saw this as a path forward. I knew that all my life experiences kind of put me in this type of a position where I had a unique way of understanding people because I had been through some of the same things too. I knew how to walk with them, I knew how to talk with them, and I knew how to advocate for them and get them to where they wanted to be. Now, life has changed for me 360. I'm reunited with my wife. We've been married 3 different times, but that's a different story. But now I have a home, a job, and I have a ring full of keys with places to go and things to do. I can't thank CASS enough for all the help that they've established in my life. Thanks for letting me share.
Cleo, thank you so much for your story. We so appreciate your insights, your sense of humor, your self-awareness. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also want everyone to know, yes, we have already asked Cleo and hopefully his wife to come on and tell on our Valentine's Day show, because any couple who marries each other 3 times, I want to hear that story. I want to hear all of those stories. We really appreciate your stories tonight, though, Cleo. Now we'd like to bring you a little bit closer to home by introducing you to Project Haven resident Cheryl Furr. She's here to help us learn more about the place that she's currently calling home and how you and I can help do more to ensure that others in our community have the same opportunities she has. We had a tape Cheryl earlier in the week, so parts of this, so this part is a taped conversation. But the first question I asked her was just, how did she come to Project Haven?
Well, I was sharing a home with 2 ladies, one of which was my friend of over 20 years. And when the COVID news first came on board and the quarantine directives came on board, I was the only one of the 3 of us that was actually going back and forth to my job. So it came a time when I guess people get scared or people get paranoid, and these 2 ladies decided to tell me that if I continued to go to my job, I couldn't come back to the house. And I wasn't about to quit my job, so I worked really hard to get it, and I wanted to keep it. So that Easter Sunday, when I went to work, that was my final day there, and I spent the next 8 days in a hotel. And of course, that couldn't last because that was very expensive to stay daily in a hotel. And I started Googling and contacting and writing out all of the addresses of shelters or uh, businesses that helped people who were homeless. And I was able to go to CASS, and I was lucky enough to be accepted. And I was scared at first because when I first got there, I heard the clerks behind the wall said that there's no more room. But somebody asked me how I came to be there, and I told them what happened with the ladies in the house that I lived in, where I was paying my share of rent and paying my share of expenses, and how I ended up leaving. So I think the ladies behind the counter felt bad for me, and they made room for me. And I was very thankful, and I was very grateful to have a roof over my head. So that's how I came to CASS.
Cheryl, you are nailing this. You are an excellent interview. I so appreciate it. I've been interviewing people since high school, and this is a pleasure. Thank you so much. Well, tell me what it's like at Project Haven. What do you like about living there?
I love it. I know this is temporary, and I'm so thankful that I have this opportunity. I have my own room. I don't have any curfews, and give they give us great food. I like the people who work here. Everybody's very friendly and personable, and I am able to be myself. I'm strict on practicing social distancing, so I'm really appreciative of us having to wear masks. I love my caseworkers. I love working with Richard, and I love working with Mary. They're very supportive, and they let me talk and say the things that I need to say, both expressing myself with the goals that I have, immediate goals and intermediate goals and long range goals, and they help me and work with me towards achieving those things. So I really like living here. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful program.
Cheryl, that is so good to hear. So I just have one question for you. What do you think would surprise everyday people? Well, I mean, you're an everyday person. Sorry, that's not make sense. But like, what do you think would surprise people about either CASS or about Project Haven? What do you think people don't know?
I think people don't know that just because somebody is homeless doesn't mean that it's something that they do for a living. Everybody who goes to CASS or everybody who comes to Project Haven, we're experiencing a setback at this point in time in our lives, but this is not what we do for a living. And the majority of people that I have met are trying to uplift themselves and to go forward with their lives so that they can be responsible adults taking care of themselves. So that's what I think a lot of people would be surprised about, because I think there's a persona that, a stigma that exists with places like CASS. In fact, when one of my coworkers learned that I was at CASS, he said, "Oh no, not CASS." I said, "No, no, no, it's not CASS. It's I'm thankful. I'm very grateful and thankful to be in CASS because I have a roof over my head. This is just a venue for me to go forward, and that's how I look at it."
God bless Cheryl. Thank you so much for being part of our show, Cheryl. It was a joy to talk to you. As you can tell in my voice, I found Cheryl to be such a great interview. She's talking to us from Project Haven, so that's why she was wearing a mask, because she was in a room that had other people who were socially distant, but she was speaking to us from one of the public spaces there, not from her personal room. But CASS has been helping us understand their needs. And at the end of the pandemic, they said they really want to be able to say they not only protected the community, but they made a significant and lasting impact on ending homelessness for hundreds of our neighbors right now, our neighbors like Cheryl. And so we have been thrilled to be part of this show with them tonight. We hope you have enjoyed watching it. I'm going to take just a second to bring up our storytellers, because that was really the show. This was one of our shortest shows. Everyone worked so hard on their stories. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of this night. We so appreciate you. And to our viewers, we appreciate your curiosity and your emotional investment in your neighbors. We hear so often about our people experiencing homelessness and what they need and what we can do. But we know that you truly have to open your hearts to receive these stories and get to know these people. And that is really how, like I said at the beginning of the show, community connecting happens. So we want to close by thanking you for watching. We want to super thank the Arizona Lottery for their ongoing and consistent support of so many Arizona services and organizations that benefit the most vulnerable in our community, but specifically for their support of this storytelling event and for their support of Central Arizona Shelter Services. With that, I hope that you donate. If nothing else, I hope that these stories stay with you in your heart. Maybe they'll motivate you to care for our homeless neighbors at some point in the future, if not right now. Thanks so much.